I've thought about this, like why, you know, with my daughters, should they take, the name? And we've got somebody in the neighborhood. I don't want to say their name, but let's call them the Butt Crackers. And
Hmm, okay.
he married a woman with the last name of Smith, basically. And so she went from being a Smith to a butt cracker.
Mhm.
And
Buten
what's the
Kraken?
Guten,
what's the
guten Kraken.
consideration
Yes.
for saying, all right, look, Mr. Cracker,
Mhm.
I have the
Mhm.
better name. Let's just kind of consolidate. This makes a lot more sense.
I love a crazy name, but as far as what you're saying about like keeping your name, this is so interesting because I just had this conversation. So my daughter, who's in the Air Force, she has kept her name Zeman and did not take her husband's name. And she's like, that's my identity. And then my son's friends who were here, I asked, they just got married, and I asked him, and I said, hey, did she take your name? And he's like, oh no, they have a very strong matriarch in that family, and she wanted to keep her name. And I was like, cool. So I think times they are a changing about traditions.
The hollow buddy. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I'm Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my bold and battle-tested co-host, Sylvia Moyer. How's that? What do you think?
That is the alliteration of the year.
Yeah, that's your self-fulfilling prophecy today. Bold and battle-tested. You're going to go into this day like a warrior.
True.
Yeah, I got you. Hey, listen, listeners, we are former police chiefs, but as always, this podcast is not just for cops. This podcast is for anyone interested in life and leadership and the lessons that we have learned about both. And those lessons fill up the hollow bunny, metaphorically, of course. Today's conversation comes from kind of a vulnerable place, a place that stripped me of titles, distractions, and productivity came from a hospital bed. But please don't turn out, because this is not about health. It's not. It's actually, it's about people. It's about what happens when strangers decide to care. And Sil and I thought this would be a great conversation because we've talked about unreasonable hospitality and what that has meant to us in that work. And I don't know. I think this is right along those same lines.
It is. And I'm telling you, if anybody's even considering turning the volume down or pushing pause, don't do it, because you are about to experience some genuine reflection, some genuine kindness, and you're going to hear some stories about what someone who goes above and beyond means to another human being, even when there's nothing that they get out of it but general humanity. And really, this is something that can translate to everyone as we consider how we show up in the world in whatever arena we are in at the current time. This is a big deal. Big deal.
So first, I want you to think about all of the times, because I know this has happened to you. It has happened to me, especially as the chief of police. I would get these beautiful emails or cards or DMs, and they would say things like, your officer showed up at my deepest and darkest moment. And perhaps it was a death where the officer was on scene. They stayed with my family until the funeral home got there. They did XYZ. They made me feel in my worst moment as though I actually mattered and they cared about me. I remember reading those, and I had such joy in passing that on to the officer. And the battle cry was always, what you do matters. How you show up for these calls matter. And I remember that, but it felt like I was kind of the outsider looking in, and I hadn't ever really been on the receiving end of that until recently, in something, very different. But have you had those moments in life where you can see so clearly when someone over delivers and you get to be a spectator of it? Or have you been on the receiving end of that before?
Oh, yes. Here's the challenge. Yes. And yes, it's actually an action like that in 1986 that urged me to become a cop. because the woman that I was riding with, we got a foot pursuit. We were in a pursuit. There was a shooting. We went to jail a couple times. It was an amazing night in Sacramento. And then she was dispatched to a call for service of a woman who had lost her husband in her home. They'd been married over 60 years. And I saw her go from this incredible pursuer of people, safeguarding people, arresting folks, this tactically sound, amazing cop, to then this tender, kind, soft-hearted human being in that moment. And I thought, you mean you can do all that as a cop? You can be badass and at in the same shift, you can be kind and tender. And that's just one example. I've seen it over and over and over and over. And as chiefs, we get that, we receive that. As executives, we receive it. Here's my thing. We're going to get to your story, but I want to pull this part where I have difficulty and you have incredible comfort is putting stuff out on social media. I just feel like if as a chief, when I would put it out, I felt like I got some backlash of people saying, "Oh, you're self-congratulatory." What do you say about that? Because what you have shared with your experience has changed the lives of people. And I want to make that super clear. You have shared it. You have described it. You have been raw and vulnerable with it. You have described this person's influence in another platform, and we're going to talk about it today and what that person did. But we're going to pick all that apart, right? I mean, what do you say about kind of sharing that outside of that one person?
Well, so that's very interesting. And I love that you brought that up because I have been told, and I also have felt from different police officers that say that they are more comfortable getting an ass chewing than an attaboy, right? Because like, they're just like, this is my job. I just want to do my job and I don't need the accolades, which is so counterintuitive because and here's the thing. I'm also going to call a little BS on that if I'm being honest, because even in those moments when you're like, please stop, stop with the congratulations. But honestly, it does feel good. It really does fill those buckets, especially sometimes. And I know there have been some times in my career where I have felt very empty and very void. And I can think of a time, especially when I was a domestic violence detective. And I just kept thinking that all of these victims / survivors that I'm trying to help, it's futile. They keep going back and they just keep going back to their abuser. And then the one day when someone says, I made significant changes in my life and I have left my abuser and I want to thank you. I remember going, oh, this is just my job. And that was true. But when I got into my car, I'll tell you what, I was filled up and overflowing to think that I even had some part. And that energized me to get up the next day and do it again. So I'm going to call bullshit on those of us that are like, no, thank you. I don't want any accolades or congratulations. So I don't know. It just feels good. It's the human condition.
I double down on your calling bullshit. I agree.
Yeah.
We have a duty and a responsibility. I'm also going to call, I'm going to bring this to light that we should tell people what they mean for us. Like bringing all your people together and saying, you are important. This is what you have meant to me. You do it one-on-one or otherwise. I think we wait to tell people the impact they've made on our life. And then they never get to feel it.
I so agree. I so agree.
I just think it's crap. It's really, it's too bad that we wait. So, okay. So you've called bullshit on it. I've called bullshit on it. So what we're saying is on this kind of first piece is, hey, if you get that, if you get a message as a leader, reach out to that person, a handwritten note, an email, going and seeing them at briefing. It's, I think there's a humility that it's our job. It's just what we do. We get to be guardians of people and warriors. We get to do that all the time, and it takes different forms. But when someone does something exceptional, we shall reach out and commend them. That's what we're both arguing for, right?
Yeah, right. Really. And let me, and just let me illustrate this. Let me add some color to this story. Again, being on the receiving end of this. And, there's this concept of a significant emotional event. There are these moments in our lives that happen to us that force clarity, the moments that interrupt our autopilot. And listen, this is for everyone. It's a layoff. It's a divorce. It's a medical scare. It's a professional failure, something that you didn't expect. And for me, this happened, just at the end of the year. And I was experiencing horrific pain, and I went to the hospital, just double down in pain. And I went to the emergency room, and I was scared because this was pain on another level, and pain that I had been ignoring, by the way. And I have this medical condition. It's called pancreatitis, and I've had it since I was a teenager, and nobody can figure out why I have it. I don't fit any of the criteria. So I thought this was just another, episode of that, just this routine thing. I've been to hospitals over the years, but this one just felt different. And I got there, and they started running some tests on me. So the first thing I got was a CT scan. And this is the thing, the significant emotional event that no one prepares you for. And I know that there are people and families who have gone through something very similar to this, where the doctor walks in and the doctor says, "We just got your CT results." And he said, "There is a very large suspicious mass on your pancreas." And I remember like the wind getting sucked out of me, like my chest just compressed, and my heart, I could feel my heart actually beating. And I looked over at my wife, and we both locked eyes. And it was in that moment for me, I thought, this is pancreatic cancer, and that is a death sentence. And so we were silent. And my wife, I think, said something like, what does that mean? And he said, "Well, I don't know." And I just asked, I said, "Is it cancer? Does it look like cancer?" And his response was, "It is presenting that way. And it's in the worst possible place on my pancreas. It's on the neck of my pancreas. And, pancreatic cancer, when it's on the tip, can be cut off." So another just affirming death sentence. So this was the night I got into the hospital, and I was having excruciating pain. And so then this other doctor walked in, and she was the hospitalist, and Dr. Sherry Green, I'm just going to say her name. And she's like, "Listen,
Sherry Green."
Sherry Green, she said, "I'm going to run some tests, some more tests." She said, "I see what has come back she was the midnight shift hospitalist. And she said, "I see what has come back." She said, "I'm going to run some tests." She goes, "I'm going to do a CT scan of your chest to see if it is cancer, to see if it is spread." Another very terrifying thing. And so I had to go through that. And she said, "I'm going to order this blood test." And I can't remember what it's called, but it is a blood test that is pretty reliable about pancreatic cancer. And so it's a tumor marker blood test. So I have to lie in this hospital bed and think about this. And so, I'm just going to fast forward through the details. They ended up transferring me to another medical center. And of course, my wife and I can't even speak, because I'm trying to, my kids are about to land on Christmas, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to tell them I have pancreatic cancer. My daughter's in Africa, and I'm thinking about how am I going to tell this to her over Zoom? She has no support. And then I'm thinking, okay, they can't get me in for this test until Monday. By the way, it is, it's Thursday night I go into the hospital. So now this is Friday, and they're talking about what next steps to confirm that this is cancer. And so I get transferred to the other hospital. And on Saturday morning, I get this text message. Now, I should back up for 1 second. Dr. Sherry Green said, when she left the hospital, she said, "I'm actually off on vacation. It's the holidays." She said, "I'm off, and, it was great meeting you. I ordered all of these tests, and, I wish you the best of luck." So I get to this other hospital, and I get a message first thing in the morning, and I'm going to read it verbatim. She said, she texted my personal phone. She said, "I know it's early, and I'm sorry if this wakes you, but I thought you would want to know that your tumor marker test came back normal. That changes the prognosis significantly. So this is good news for now." Now she has to be cautious, because I still have the test that they have to go into my pancreas and see if it's cancer. Yeah. And that was the first moment where I got some hope. But I want to underscore here, She was off work and on vacation, and she logged into my chart remotely while she was off work with her family because she knew I was so scared. And that is about over delivering. And that was the first moment that I could actually breathe. Like, maybe this isn't what they say it is. Fast forward, friends, to Friday, where I did get the test, and it's not cancer. It's a very large mass on my pancreas that is not cancer. It's still something to be reckoned with that I have to deal with, but it is not a death sentence thus far. And in that moment, I just remember thinking, she didn't have to do that. She went above and beyond. And then the other thing that happened is these doctors that just started to come in and pull up a stool and look at me. Dr. Mark Bloomston, who looked at me in the eye and said, I don't think it's cancer. I can't say for sure yet, but if it is, we are going to deal with this. And he looked at me and it gave me hope. And these were real human moments. And, I just fell into the kindness and the humanity, and they didn't beat around the bush. This could be, but we don't think it is. And I just, these certain moments of being on the receiving end, I'll stop there, but it was an over deliver moment that I don't think people recognize the power they have of human transference. We think about things as this is just a job. This is just what we do. I don't care what industry you're in, education, corporate leadership, healthcare, retail, trades, management. Man, it's the humanity of it all that matters. And I'm all about the people who over deliver. And that is what I want to talk about today.
For those of us that were on the outside, really pulling for you and connecting with you, there were a lot of sleepless nights by a lot of folks. And I'm sure everybody is relieved, no one more than you and your fam. Totally relieved, right?
So that's another part of this. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I don't want to, understate the people, the inner circle, the reliables, the people that you fall into. Those people matter. The people that I was afraid to tell my children, because that makes sense. Like, don't scare my kids until they get the results. Right. And then, but I still had to process this, and the way that I process things, was with like internally, and then with my wife, and then with my reliables, and the people that are like, okay, you're in the hospital, what's going on? And one of them was you, to say, here's what I'm going through. Here's what they just told me. Here's what their potential prognosis is. And gosh, that trust builds over time. And I'll tell you what, lying in that hospital bed, believing that I was dying, writing, you were also, I don't know if you know this, but you were going to be in charge of writing and delivering a eulogy.
You would assign that to me.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. You can go ahead. You can put that on ice right now, but that was going to be your role.
Did I have to write it and deliver it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah. Sorry to bring that up now. But in that moment,
I wasn't ready. Thanks for not dying.
Yeah. No problem. That's, it's a big undertaking, but I just, the reliables, the people that I could look at and say, or, talk to and say, I am so scared that this is happening. And I'll tell you what, lying in that hospital bed, believing that this was a death sentence, put all of my people into perspective of like, here are the people. And I'll tell you, the ones who did not show up, and the ones that over petty grievances, did not show up. And I was like, you know what? This matters. That perhaps is another podcast, because this is really about the power of strangers who care. No obligation, no recognition, and no long-term relationship. And that is what I want to make universal here.
It has to be heard. You and I are really good at getting in an off ramp, getting back on, another off ramp, get on. I want to stay in this lane, because we've talked about this, explored this in terms of Will Guidara and unreasonable hospitality. How could we actually use that in policing, in restaurants, in all the places, right? And really what he was urging is what you said, humanity. And I would argue that Dr. Sherry Green good on you, sister, because you saw a human being that was terrified, that is young and vibrant in Kristen Zeman. You went one step, two steps further, well, in your kind of your tool bag. It's you had the authority to do that, and it was the right thing to do, Dr. Green. Here's the thing: I have to believe that was less doctor, more human.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to explore that there are millions of times where that happens every single day. Someone at a gas pump saying there has a car seat with a kid in it, doesn't have money for gas. You put $20, $40 worth of gas in their car and expect nothing in return. It is it's we could give a million examples. So what she did for you was she gave you a glimmer of hope that there was a different path this was going to travel. And I argue she did it because she's a kind soul. And here's what I want to ask you. What are the barriers for a clinician, a cop, an executive, someone else using their authority, using their humanity? What's the barrier for them doing that? Let's talk.
So-
what are the barriers?
Here's what I think it is. There are so many of us walking around on autopilot. And let's be honest. Here's the other side of this. This is the thing that we call compassion fatigue. Is someone may argue that it is not feasibly possible to take on the pain and suffering of everyone for whom we interact. And my response to that is that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about delving so deep where you take on the pain. What I'm talking about is, and this is what I think the barrier is. I hate my job. You know how many people wake up in the morning and they're just so uninspired by what they do, whether you are a barista, whether you are a person that shows up. And I'll tell you what, volume minimizes this. It's the 1,000 tiny cuts that make us callous. It is the 911 calls that a cop responds to all day long. And perhaps this is their 6th burglary report of the day where someone was violated, and you go and you just take the report and it's just another routine call. But to the person it happened to, it is real and it is raw.
Yep. And it's the one time they may interact with a person from your company or a cop. We have thousands and thousands of personal examples and examples where we are witness to. I also want to say, okay, I get that volume. I get it that it's like you can't shoulder the burden of everyone. Empathy doesn't really require, and compassion doesn't require that you carry their stuff. But what it does is to care is definitionally is to identify with.
Yeah.
Right? To care is to identify with. That doesn't mean that you own their feelings. Also, compassion is a learned skill. Compassion is an intention. Compassion is something you do on purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's naturally emergent, but sometimes you have to do it on purpose. And sometimes doing it on purpose cultivates the connections where then it occurs with greater frequency without doing it on purpose. And what she did for you was she connected with you. Who couldn't? You in a hospital gown? Were you in a hospital gown?
No, they did not make me wear a hospital gown, which is 1+. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. She saw it. She felt it. She was well within her authority. She did the right thing. And okay, she's on her time off. You made an impression on her and she went above and beyond.
Yeah. And she knew I was going to have to wait days, to find out. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Here's the other thing. I think some people do it. I've been burned so strongly by doing something kind. I'm like, what do you mean? Every cop has the story. I'll drive you home. It's well within policy. It's well within the law.
Yeah.
You drive somebody home, you get them to their door. The next day they call and say, you took my purse and violated me. And it's like, wait, what are you talking about?
Okay,
You didn't have a purse and I did something kind. So there's this consistent story that a lot of people in policing tell. Every time you do something nice, you get
it
burned.
bites you in the ass.
But I'd say it's worth the risk. I say it's worth the risk, because what if
You know
what if Dr. Green comes back and says, "Oh yeah, so that one test that I ordered, come on."
Yeah, I
I
call bullshit too. I call bullshit in the same way, is that's the risk versus reward. This is just like saying, well, if I fall in love, my heart may get broken and then I'll have a hardened heart, well, so what's the alternative? That we don't let people into our lives. So if you don't want to be harmed, then by all means, don't offer anything into the world whatsoever.
Don't want to be criticized. Don't do anything. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
You don't want to be criticized. Yeah, it's the common story, and those are bullshit excuses for people keeping on their armor and just not connecting with human beings and with themselves.
I think there's a lot of excuses not to do it. And what I'm kind of obsessed with now, and bear with me here, it's the idea. I'm going back to this idea of human transference. It's the over delivering, but here is what it's actually about. Human transference is the idea that we pass emotional states to one another, whether that be calm, fear, dignity, or hope. And we do it without realizing it. The way that you show up in a moment transfers something to the person who is in front of you. Your tone, your presence, whether you rush or whether you listen, whether you see them as a task, a file, a police report, or a human being. It all moves across the space between the two of you. And I think that's the part that we underestimate, Sil, is that the transfer doesn't end when the interaction ends. Yeah. People carry it with them into the next meeting, into their homes, and into the way they talk to the next person. I'm getting emotional here because it's like these people that got to my eye level, and I'm shouting out the RNs and the CNAs of Gulf Coast Medical Center, 7 West Oncology floor that just didn't stop treating me with human dignity and respect. And it's like that human transference, I felt their care and concern. And there's nothing that I can describe that feels better than just being cared for when you're so scared. And that is the takeaway here for people in professions that deal with other people. And let me say that's pretty much all of them. So you can still be a barista making your 400th coffee of the day for someone, and you can still look someone in the eye and go, "Hey, how's your day?" That's human transference. It's that simple. I'm not asking you to delve into, their lives and their personal space whatsoever. I'm just talking about that. I don't know. It's powerful for me.
It's powerful, and it's a powerful story. And there is I've heard of some research that's really diving into this from the human level and looking at neuroscience and how we can actually influence the thinking and behavior of the other.
Yeah.
And really this builds on a lot of things that we talk about just general civility, how you enter the room, how you in a very busy day, we can rush and we can be busy as a nurse and fucking hate being on the oncology floor. They couldn't put you in pediatrics, more aligned with your personality.
I know, buddy. When they rolled me onto the oncology floor, I was like, well, that solidifies it. They haven't told me yet because the test results, aren't till Monday that they take the test. But when they rolled me onto the oncology floor and the oncology specialist and the oncology surgeon came to visit me, I went dark, buddy. I went dark. I went dark.
Yeah. You went dark, and there were a lot of folks right there with you. And it's not about any of us. There were sleepless nights. There were people because of the genuine care and concern and love and admiration, respect, and all that that your people have for you. Okay, that being said, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you rolled into the oncology floor, shit balls. Okay, Kristen, I think this is a call to action. It's a call to action to see people want to be seen, and people want to be connected with. They want to be heard and valued. And there are a lot of people that can't receive that, and then they block it, and then they say, "You haven't heard me." Whatever. It's all that I'm calling just bullshit, just crap on the excuses of why they can't be open-hearted, why they can't connect with you as a patient and see you. That, I think, is an intention to walk in a room as an RN and say, hello, to connect with you. Hi, I'm Sylvia, and I'm with you all day today.
Yep.
Something. I
Yeah.
just, I just
Yeah.
think we just need to insert humanity and civility, and you felt that difference. And so this human transference thing, I'm interested. Did you make up that term?
No, 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 no. I read about it. I used to tell my cops that. I used to tell them that, oh, you know where it came from? Actually, I read it somewhere, so I wish I could cite the source, but I actually got called into my lieutenant's office as a sergeant, a new sergeant. And he told me that I was too, light and laissez-faire during my roll calls with my people.
That guy.
And that guy. And I remember saying to him, sir, with all due respect, these officers are walking into roll call at 2:40 in the afternoon. I don't know what they have been through during their day. I don't know if they've been taking care of children, if they've gotten into a fight with their spouse, if they're suffering from kind of stress or whatever it is. But when they walk in that roll call room, I would really like to lighten their mood. And I told him, I said, I want them to feel lighter and better when they walk out of roll call, because their first interaction with someone on the street may be negative. And it's that pop can where you just shake that pop can and the pressure builds up, and then, you open the pop can and it explodes. What if we just tap that pop can? I said, so I try to use humor, so I think that is part of it. But I also want to talk about something that you said about sometimes, things not getting recognized. I think there is also a lie that we tell that is, if it doesn't get recognized, it doesn't matter. And the truth is that you'll never know. Sometimes you'll never know how far your ripple travels. Like maybe a teacher's comment that suddenly shifts a student's confidence, or a manager who handles a mistake with dignity, a stranger who interrupts, something. I don't know, because cynicism is our default. It's so tempting. It feels safer and it protects us against disappointment, but connection is braver, and it requires vulnerability, and it requires presence. And I don't know. I just think that, that the ripple effect matters, and you may not see the results of it, but that still doesn't mean that you don't keep doing better.
Word. And you hit on a couple things. For the folks on the West Coast, pop is it's like a soda. It's pop is like in a can, and it's carbonated like Diet Pepsi, right?
Yeah, that's a very Midwestern thing. You call it soda. Yeah, it's pop. It's pop.
Okay. Yeah. So that's important. The other thing that's important is you just hit on something that has been like this emerging deal. Peter Block wrote this book called Stewardship. And in that book, he had a chapter called Cynics, Critics, and Bystanders. And what he argued was that there is a grain of truth. There's a little grain of truth in the cynic. Something influenced, a truth and an experience influenced the cynicism. The call to action is, if you start feeling like the cynic, if you have a grievance and you start seeing that you're a grievance collector, like you've got a couple, that's a you freaking problem. Yeah. That is a you problem. And you have in your mind, in your soul, in your presence, in your being, the ability to say, like Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is this space. In this space lies our freedom. In our freedom, that is the full expression of us as people. The stimulus and response are influenced by us. So the cynic can just really check themselves. Okay, I don't want to get too far afield. I don't want to get too far away from this incredible center message about people that treated you with care and dignity and respect, and this compassion that just kind of held you and gave you a light, just the degree of compassion and hope that they gave you. All of us say thank you to them, because each of us has the opportunity to do that for another human being. And the fact that they did that for someone that we love, come on, man.
Yeah. And so you said something about when you were calling bullshit about, about how it doesn't have to be deep, compassion, but just basic human empathy. And I think what you're saying there is that connection is a decision. It's not this personality trait or something that you're born with. It's, it's the idea that you are purposely going out there. And also there's another lesson here. And this is me, is like receiving care is uncomfortable because, because of independence, because of pride, fear of being a burden. And that's me. I don't want to be a burden on anyone. And what I also realized here, Sylvia Moyer, is that letting people show up for you is not weak. And that when I had to fall into my tribe, I felt like, oh God, this is so burdensome. This is just stupid. And I'll tell you what, I needed to just let people show up for me. And I needed to feel your hand and many hands on my back in that moment. So I don't know here, there's a lot of call to action here. One of them is to hug your people and to check in again, not just once, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. No, ask again, over deliver when you can, care for strangers without needing credit. It creates a ripple effect. And there's a leadership takeaway here, is that people always remember how you made them feel long after they forget what you did.
Yeah. I'm actually, I don't know why my response right now is I am like dripping with, I'm sweaty because it's so important. And what you've given us is a portal into your thinking and your soul. I mean, we get little glimpses of them. Those of us, that get to be in your space as part of your front row, we get a different portal, but you've just given a tremendous gift to folks to look, you're a strong, badass woman. And we've talked about that so much, and it's on full display for everyone. And for you to get this serious kick in the gut, to review how you're spending your one precious life. And, and there's this other thing, right? That we have opportunities to reevaluate how we show up and with whom we spend time with.
That's
and
right.
So, and because we have this little tribe, we choose our people, we choose the reciprocal love and respect and admiration and all the things that come with that choice. We also just say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And that still, all that does not relieve us of the basic burden and necessity of general civility and kindness. And in this unfolding experience that is mindfulness, to be present, to choose compassion, to choose kindness is a gift. And that does not make you weak. Kristen Zeman, you demonstrated, and others have as well. It makes you courageous. Candor is courageous. Vulnerability is courageous. And it should be treated with the care and kindness in which it is given. It is a gift that you have given to all your people because you're doubling down on that connection. It's really something. So
I love that. Yeah, it really does have this whole ordeal has really put things into perspective. And I have such peace and such clarity about my tribe. And a shout out to, my wife, who did not leave my side, because every time she left my mind, I was, not wanting to go down the rabbit hole of, Googling it, which is a death sentence, but she didn't leave my side, and she slept uncomfortably, on basically, a 2x4 kind of mattress. It was terrible, but it's. So listen, I'm going to take us out. I'm going to land the plane here.
Well,
go ahead. You got a final
thought? I do.
Okay.
So that little fucker, Pancreas Pedro, we've called him Pedro, right?
His name is Pablo.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to have collective action that, he needs to just step up.
Yeah, he really does.
And he needs to step up. And because your pancreas has a male identity, he can look himself in the mirror and he can say, "Ooh,
I look great today.
I look freaking great." And you know what? Cyst on my neck. Move on. Just dissipate. Move on.
That's right. Pablo. See, now I'm calling him Pedro. It's Pablo. Yeah. Because I thought it was like evil because of Escobar, I try to go dark there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. And it's alliteration. You know how I love alliteration. Pablo the Pancreas. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm super, super impressed. And yeah, thank you for
Thanks.
today. Wow.
Thanks for being there, buddy, through all of it. That was a big deal. I'm glad I'm on the other side of it, and still have some hills to climb here, but I feel pretty confident thanks to all the people who showed up, and I'm putting my hands in the expertise of those people who know what they're talking about. So the trust goes to them. So, hey, listen, bunnies, as you guys have seen, this episode this isn't about hospitals. This isn't about medicine. This isn't about me. It's about people. It is the ones that you trust with your worst moments and the ones you haven't met yet that may just change everything with one single act of care. So if there's anything worth embracing from this podcast, it's this. Choose connection over cynicism, gratitude over guarding, and people. Always people over everything else. Ted Madden produces this podcast, and the song you're about to hear was written and performed exclusively for the Hollow Bunny by my handsome and talented son, Jake, and his friends, Fabian and Zoe. If you liked it, please subscribe, like it, review it, and tell everyone you know about it. Share it. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. And if you don't, move along. Obviously, you're empty and void of any emotion or good sense. Keep filling your own bunnies and keep adding substance to others. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why, have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and you're scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all, and I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. If you're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. You're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. The monsters